Hi guys, it's Mai from Crypto Beta Cafe, and in this video, I'm going to review my favorite topic to obviously discuss, which is the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX case, because now there is finally some blame being shifted towards his parents, and I'm going to review a few articles and then compare the New York Times article. And I just want to start by saying the New York Times and Wall Street Journal has done a horrible job at fairly reporting this situation, and it's always with like a grain of salt or like very nice framing when it comes to Sam Bankman-Fried and his parents. And I don't think that's okay. I don't know how much money they've received from Sam Bankman-Fried, but both Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and New York Times has been overly kind to him when you should be neutral or you should absolve yourself from reporting upon it, because I don't think, devaluing, removing character presentation because of your relationship to the said subject, because you want more direct stories, is fair from a journalistic perspective. I'm just going to read these two articles and we're going to hear a huge comparison. But if you guys have been following my work, I have spoken about how I think his parents should be included in the case and be labeled as co-conspirators, because I don't think he did this alone. In terms of the subsidiaries, or about like what, like 30, between 35 and 50 different businesses. I have to refer back to my notes that were subsidiaries of FTX for this reason, that if it were to bankrupt, they could different accounts and things of that nature. And his father is very well skilled at that. He understands how to do that. And then the mother, who does like campaign funding and donor funding for campaigns. Well, what is Sam Bankman being accused of? Sending money to different senators for their campaign funds. So I not to sound rude, but like it kind of seems as if they've assisted him in expending some of the money. And the fact that they're not being charged with him is kind of odd to me. Like if this had been anyone else's family who had been involved in his work and received paychecks from the company, they would be, investigated as well. And the fact that it's taken, this is September, the case starts in October, for now them to be looked at is very, very odd to me. But let's read these articles really quick. So I'm going to start with the New York Times article. So it says Sam Bankman-Fried's parents sued. Sam Bankman-Fried's parents sued by FTX. Lawyer overseeing the bankruptcy cryptocurrency exchange accused Joe Bankman and Barbara Fried of enriching themselves with the money their son stole from customers. And this is the two. For months, John J. Ray III, the corporate turnaround expert who was appointed to oversee the bankruptcy of the FTX crypto exchange, has attacked the company's founder, and not attacked. He is the co-owner of, he's the owner and signed for most of the subsidiaries. So it's not attacked. When you own and you sign off on things, you are being held accountable. So again, issue with the New York Times verbiage and reporting Sam Bankman-Fried, very frustrating. Sam Bankman-Fried accused him of old-fashioned embezzlement. Now Mr. Ray has a new target. See, not a new target. You received a check from FTX. You now can be, if you were complicit in the situation, you are hypothetically a co-conspirator. If you were aware and you didn't say, hey, son, this is illegal, you are a part of the problem. We need to work on accountability with this case. There seems to be none. On Monday, FTX filed a lawsuit in federal court in Delaware accusing Joe Bankman and Barbara Fried, longtime Stanford law professors, of using their access and influence within the FTX enterprise to enrich themselves. The lawsuit seeks to claw back millions of dollars the couple received from their son. In this complaint, the FTX lawyer said that Bankman and Miss Fried got $10 million cash gift from Mr. Bankman, which is weird. Like, why did they receive a $10 million cash gift? That's not right. Like, that doesn't even make, you have to understand like how these things are shady. It gives intent to defraud. As well as a 16.4 million home in the Bahamas where FTX was based. That was purchased by the exchange. The suit also claimed that Mr. Bankman helped cover up complaints by a former lawyer for his son's business, and that Mrs. Fried coached Bankman-Fried and another FTX executive to evade disclosure requirements. for political donations. Yeah, that's a crime. Like the couple either knew or ignored the bright red flags revealing that their son, Bankman-Fried, and other FTX insiders were orchestrating vast fraudulent schemes. And I just hate the sympathy. Either knew or ignored bright red flags. Yeah, you can't ignore bright red flags if you're the ones placing them on the field. So in a statement, lawyers for Mr. Bankman-Fried and Mrs. Fried said that FTX claims were completely false and called the lawsuit a dangerous attempt to intimidate Joe and Barbara and undermine the jury's process shortly before Mr. Bankman-Fried is scheduled for a criminal trial. No, honey, you need to be on that docket. That's what they're trying to do. FTX filed for bankruptcy protection in November after a run on the deposit exposed a $8 billion hold in the exchange's account. The next month, federal prosecutors in Manhattan charged Mr. Bankman-Fried with orchestrating a scheme to use customers' deposits to finance billions of dollars in venture capital investments, political donations, and luxury real estate purchase. As we know, he has pled not guilty repeatedly and said that he shouldn't even be held in jail and has done nothing wrong. The FTX collapse fueled the scrutiny of Mr. Bankman and Mrs. Fried, and decorated tax professor Mr. Bankman as an FTX employee was heavily involved in the company's efforts, while Mrs. Fried, also a respected scholar, ran a political donor network that her son helped finance. According to the lawsuit, Mr. Bankman helped arrange hundreds of millions of dollars in loans to top employees that were listed on the internal document as members of the firm's management team. In a message cited in the lawsuit, Mr. Bankman complained that he was only receiving a salary of $200 a year opposed to the $1 million that he thought he would get. Ah, yes, because 200 grand is not enough, of course. Gee, Sam, I don't know what to say here, he wrote in an email citing the suit. This is the first I have heard of this $200K a year salary. Soon after, Mr. Bankman sent him a $10 million gift, the lawsuit said. Mr. Bankman also flew on private jets and expensed a $1,200 per night hotel stay to FTX. According to the lawsuit, he made a cameo appearance alongside comedian Larry David in an FTX commercial during the 2022 Super Bowl. Mr. Bankman pushed for his role in the commercial, the lawsuit said, quoting him as saying he wasn't obsessed with celebrities and didn't really care about meeting Tom Brady, but Larry David. The lawsuit also claimed that Mr. Bankman helped cover up the allegation by a former FTX lawyer that some of Mr. Bankman-Fried's businesses had engaged in money laundering and price manipulation. Wow, so there were lawyers that did come out about this previously. It's so sad. Rather than looking to the claim, the lawsuit said Mr. Bankman suggested investigating the lawyer. Oh yeah, you're complicit. Yeah, they're complicit. They need to be charged because you're out here blaming people that are saying, hey, what's going on? Yeah, no. Mrs. Fried never worked for FTX, but she was intimately involved with her son's work, the lawsuit said. According to the complaint, she advised him on political donations and encouraged him and other executives to make straw donations that concealed that the money was coming from FTX. Yeah, that's totally not legal. And a strategy designed to avoid, if not violate, federal campaign finance disclosure rules. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ. On August 2022, an email cited in the suit, she brought up another donor would give a non-disclosure form, and she would strongly urge you to do the same or substitute someone else's name. Federal prosecutors have accused Mr. Bankman-Fried of orchestrating straw donation schemes. That's the thing. If his mom helped him, I guess they're going to drop the charge and reassign it. Jesus. Mr. Bankman and Mrs. Fried were frequent visitors to the Bahamas. Since the FTX collapse, the couple claimed they never believed they owned the house. I'm sorry. It's not funny. It's just like the ludicrousness of denying things that you were clearly aware of when it comes to millions of dollars in properties and assets that have been transferred to you and are in your name, most likely. You know, you kind of can't play dumb at that point. You have to develop a different strategy, or you need to just say, hey, sorry, but denying it when you are clearly aware and probably helped orchestrate it is a different type of evil. When there are people that are financially have suffered from this situation and have been financially impacted, the level of insensitivity regarding the situation is just very inhumane to me. But according to the suit, a subsidiary of the FTX paid for the home. Mr. Bankman emailed a top FTX executive in May 2022, inviting him and others over to the house to celebrate the house you helped us move into, the complaint had said. He and Mrs. Fried were granted permanent residency in the Bahamas last October, the suit said, with FTX covering $30,000 of fees associated with the applications. Mr. Bankman also said that FTX employees, the company provided landscaping service from the house. They can bill FTX directly, according to the lawsuit. After 1 month, the purchase was closed, the complaint said. Mrs. Fried instructed FTX employees to place online orders for rugs, for a sofa, and at least 8 vases, and a Persian hand-knitted rug costing more than $2,500. Such odd behavior. Now let's move to a different article that will critique them very deeply. And I love this one. Let's start off. How Sam Bankman-Fried's parents enabled his criminal empire. This is more aligned with my level of directness with them, because I don't think there should be any sympathy of the situation. This is absolutely ridiculous and inappropriate. A question has come up repeatedly in the FTX scandal has been the role of Sam Bankman-Fried's parents. Namely, how could such respectable people, Stanford law professors, stainless from their sense of ethics? And I've also written about this or commented. His mother has a paper saying that, like, since we don't have free will, like, no one should be held for their crimes, something along those lines. When someone has that theme of ethics in their brain, I don't put it past them to do whatever they're going to do, because they think they're above the law. They think they're above, ethics. And you basically raise a baby sociopath and who calls what they're doing effective altruism. So I literally think they're the problem. Like, you've created a child who thinks it's okay to steal if you give some of it away, or if you're reappropriating it to your employees. It's not okay to do these things. And having that mindset is very dangerous when you're in a new space, when we're fighting for regulation, and that we're already being accused of being such a scam-filled industry. Like, this isn't crypto. This is the works and belief systems of this family. And I always wanted to make that clear. This is why I've covered this case so much, because I find it frustrating for me to consistently report and defend this industry. And then people like this get so much fame, asset funding, company funding, and do these things. And then people go, well, all of crypto is a scam. No, there are certain peoples that have connections that are going to utilize and use crypto to do things like this. It's when you look at all of these crimes, it's still traditional money laundering. It's still traditional asset movement and corporate organization. Those are traditional crimes. They're just using crypto as a way to get deposits to enhance what was allegedly described as a crime. So I always like to clarify that. This is not an example that crypto itself, it's someone who used the technology in a bad way and used, the marketing of crypto to get people on board so they can have more financial collateral, notoriety, and more ability to financing. Remember, Sam Bankman-Fried was able to leverage his name to get more funding for his projects without actually doing the work. And sorry, that was an aside. Back to the article. So for their sense of ethics, have raised a sociopath who stole billions of dollars under the guise of altruism. As it turns out, they were Bankman-Fried's primary accomplice. And a scorching cover story in Business Week reveals Barbara Fried and Joseph Bankman didn't just raise a criminal, but actively took part in running FTX and enjoying the spoils of the fraud. They regularly turned up in the company's office and were included in important emails, and most critically, flexed their prestige to open doors in Silicon Valley and Democratic power circles for their son. Meanwhile, these two advocates for the poor held themselves to a $16 million luxury villa in the Bahamas and a $10 million in cash paid for by the FTX customers. While the parents were complicit, Sam Bankman-Fried's fathers had the most direct role, drawing upon his experience as a famous tax lawyer. Let's highlight this real fast. Drawing upon his experience as a famous tax lawyer, so he would understand how to set up subsidiary businesses as to draw away attention from doing whatever they're doing. So I just want to highlight that as being inherently problematic. to help devise the offshore corporate entity as well as FTT, the made-up currency Bankman-Fried issued when he launched his cryptocurrency exchange, and the flimsy asset on which his Jenga tower of imagined wealth would sit. Ironically, Bankman-Fried reported his plans to invoke the advice of counsel in defense of his trial next month. So he's literally trying legal strategy of blaming the lawyer. Which is not fair because a lawyer is just representing you to the best of their ability. I'm pretty sure they were not cognizant. And as we just read in another story, a lawyer did bring up some issues, and then the dad literally was like, investigate him. So, based upon that interaction alone, this legal strategy won't work if other lawyers were, highlighting issues within the way this company was operating. If that's the case, it feels like it may be only a matter of time until his dad, who provided that advice, faces criminal jeopardy. And I'm really afraid of that too. Like, I think Sam Bankman-Fried may be serving his parents on a platter. And I would like to say that I don't think that's appropriate. All of them should be tried. It shouldn't be like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. My parents told me to do it. All of you guys were working together to do this. He participated in the father participated in a number of decisions, including the launch of FTX, the creation of FTT, the company's courtship of politicians and dealing with regulators in Bahamas, and they have been criticized by regulators and prosecutors as potentially illegal. Bankman was also involved in the hiring of Friedberg. FTX's general counsel has been accused of enabling fraud and working to cover up efforts to expose it, including paying off potential whistleblowers. The Business Week article is devastating in its critique of Sam Bankman-Fried's sleazy parents, but also the broader community of the Stanford University that swaddles up its nepo babies in extreme privilege and spins questionable behavior, like playing Leagues of Legends during board meetings, as evidence of genius. Yes, you're right. It's not hard to conclude that there is moral rot at that school. In recent years, its leading figures have not included Barbara Fried and Sam Bankman, but Theranos founder, oh dear Lord, she came from that school. Jesus. Oh God. And university president who's recently resigned for faking scientific data. These are just some of the revelations from Business Week article, and maybe the best account of FTX's debate. Yeah, and I think Stanford is complicit in, I think, whether it be the housing structure where his parents, don't quote me, I have to come back in quotes with that. But they are Stanford University is related in some form of a way, allegedly. Okay, so thank you guys for watching this video, and I'm going to cover this case through the duration of trial. But I definitely think his parents should be tried, because there's no way you can please use the I don't know button when they've been basically there from the beginning. Insane. Okay, bye guys. Have a good day, night, or evening. Follow Crypto Bay on Instagram, and follow us on Medium too, where I post articles that are better explanation of some of my content. Okay, thank you guys. Bye-bye.